Each language is a unique storage of information about the ethnic group using it and its culture, about the evolution of the language itself, as well as the nature of man as a biological species. The history of humanity saw the appearance of one languages and the extinction of others. However, in the context of globalization and formed information society, the process of language extinction has grown to alarming proportions in the recent years. According to the pessimistic forecast of UNESCO, with this rate, only about 10% of the currently existing languages would survive by the end of the 21st century. The challenge of our time is the preservation of traditions, cultures, languages, and traditional ways of life of indigenous peoples of the world, including the Arctic peoples and their representation in the global information space, in the new multicultural environment of communication of the 21st century. This is particularly important for the indigenous peoples of the North, Siberia, and the Far East, whose languages and cultures are already on the verge of extinction. There are very few native speakers and culture barriers. Therefore, our urgent task is to record their languages and cultures in the digital media and to introduce them in the global internet for future generations and for those who want to study, preserve, and develop their native language. The Center of Digital and Cultural Heritage of the Nephew Yakut Global University deals with this important and urgent task. The head of the center, the Doctor of Pedagogical Sciences, Anatoly Vasilievich Zhozhikov, will give brief information about the work of this center. The interest in the preservation of languages and cultural heritage of indigenous peoples appeared in the late 90s. The Nephew Center of New Informational Technologies did some small projects on launching sites and making CDs on languages and cultural heritage of the indigenous peoples of the Sakha Republic, Yakutia. Major projects were made in cooperation with the Arctic Institute of Culture and Arts and Yaroslavsky Yakut State Museum of History and Culture of Northern Peoples. Here is the list of the projects. Circumpolar civilization in the world museums, yesterday, today, tomorrow. The Sakha Republic Yakutia Cultural Diversity Observatory. Carrying out these projects, we realized the importance of this work and gradually began to accumulate all our achievements in a systematic project. Thus, in 2011, under the Nephew Development Program, we launched a major project, the preservation and promotion of the language and cultures of indigenous peoples of the North, Siberia, and the Russian Far East on digital media and in cyberspace. This project became the core activity of our department. In December 2014, the Center of New Information Technologies was renamed into the Center of Digital and Cultural Heritage of the Indigenous Peoples of the Nephew Yakut Global University. This video is an attempt to show what has been done by us in terms of the preservation and promotion of languages and cultures of indigenous peoples on digital media and in cyberspace. Project Goal: to introduce linguistic and cultural diversity of the indigenous peoples on the digital media and in the internet. To create a virtual environment for communication in their native languages on a single multilingual Arctic portal. During the first phase of the project, from 2011 to 2013, the field trips to places of compact residence of indigenous peoples of the Sakha Republic Yakutia were organized to take video and photographic evidence of endangered native speakers and culture barriers. Yukagir, Dolgan, Events, Evenki, Chukchi. The collected material is used in two ways. Firstly, the creation of digital educational media DVDs on the languages and cultures of indigenous peoples. Secondly, the creation of public multilingual portal for indigenous peoples. The center produced 10 informative educational DVDs on languages and cultures of the indigenous peoples, developed a mega portal of indigenous peoples where all the available materials have been already posted. The Yukagirs were the first to have been digitized and recorded on the thematic educational CDs, as well as introduced on the internet. The chairman of the Yukagir Council of Elders, Vyacheslav Shadrin, will tell a few words about this project. Since 2011, the Association of the Yukagirs of the Sakha Republic Yakutia and the Yukagirs Council of Elders have been cooperating with the Nephew Center of Digital and Cultural Heritage and implementing one of the most successful projects on preservation of the Yukagir language and culture in cyberspace and on digital media. This project has resulted in the release of 18 CDs. Some of them are textbooks to study the Yukagir language, such as phrasebooks, dictionaries, voice recordings of various manuals in Yukagir. It is very important nowadays because we have few native speakers left. Another part of the discs represent digitized archival materials that were stored in private collections. The rest of the materials are materials on preservation of the Yukagir culture, its promotion and popularization. We do hope that the joint project with the Center of Digital and Cultural Heritage will continue and make a great contribution to the preservation and promotion of our culture and language. The work in this area has shown a great demand for the project, not only in the Sakha Republic Yakutia, but also in the other regions of the Russian Federation, where representatives of indigenous peoples live. In March 2013, this project was presented at the 7th Congress of Indigenous Peoples of the North, Siberia and the Russian Far East in Salekhardt, and excited great interest and support. In April 2013, the active multilingual portal of indigenous peoples became a finalist of the Far East Internet Awards Siberian Queen in the section The Best Non-Commercial or Thematic Project in the Russian Far East. The next phase, since 2014, has been marked by the project expansion in the entire Russian Far East. The field trips for recording indigenous peoples on digital media were organized to Chukotka, Kamchatka, and the Khabarovsk Krai. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to cover all these ethnic groups, but in the nearest future we want to present all the indigenous peoples of the Russian Far East on the portal, and in the long run, all the indigenous peoples of the North, Siberia and the Far East. The result of this project is that a single portal of indigenous peoples should become an accessible, informational, cultural and educational environment, not only for indigenous peoples of the North, Siberia and the Far East, but also for the indigenous peoples of other countries.